David looked at his reflection in a cracked mirror at a Manila bus terminal. He wasn't the CEO of a tech giant anymore. He wore a stained t-shirt, torn jeans, and shoes held together by duct tape. He had billions in the bank, but right now, he had 0 pesos in his pocket. He was about to find out if human kindness was real, or if the world only cared about his wallet. What David didn't know was that the person who would save his life was someone the rest of the world had completely abandoned. The challenge. David Miller was bored of his life in New York. He lived in a world of yes men and fake smiles. So he made a bet with his board of directors. He would fly to the Philippines, go missing for 48 hours without a single cent, and see if he could survive on the streets of Tondo. "They'll ignore you," his CFO laughed. "In a place that poor, everyone is looking out for themselves. You'll be back at the Hyatt by dinner." David landed in Manila, left his passport and black card in a locker, and stepped into the humidity. The rejection. For the first 6 hours, David was invisible. He went to a high-end cafe in Makati, looking for a glass of water. "I'm a traveler. I lost my bag," he lied. The manager didn't even look him in the eye. "Security, move this man along. You're bothering the guests." He tried a local fast food joint. "Can I sweep the floor for a meal?" The cashier laughed. "We have the machines for that. Get out." By sunset, David was lightheaded. The rain started, a typical Manila downpour that turns the streets into rivers. He sat under a rusted corrugated roof, shivering. Thousands of people passed him. Men in suits, students with umbrellas, tourists with cameras. To them, David was just another piece of street furniture, another Palubi. The turning point. It was 9 p.m. David was huddled near a trash heap, his stomach cramping from hunger. A group of teenagers walked by, mocking his messy beard. One of them kicked his foot. "Hey, Joe, go back to your country." David felt a lump in his throat. For the first time in 30 years, he felt truly small. Then a hand touched his shoulder. David flinched. Standing over him was a young girl, maybe 10 years old. She was wearing a dress made from old flour sacks. Her face was smudged with soot, and she was carrying a heavy sack of plastic bottles she had scavenged from the trash. Her name was Maya. She didn't speak English well, but she didn't need to. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small plastic bag. Inside was a half-eaten piece of fried chicken and a scoop of rice. "Cain," she said softly. "Eat." The sacrifice. David stared at the food. He knew, looking at her thin frame, that this was likely her only meal for the day. I can't take this," David whispered. Maya pushed the bag into his hands. She smiled, revealing a missing front tooth. She reached into her sack of scavenged bottles, pulled out a lukewarm bottle of water she hadn't sold yet, and handed it to him. She sat down on the wet concrete next to the billionaire. For the next hour, she didn't ask for money. She didn't ask for a job. She just stayed with him so he wouldn't be alone in the rain. She told him, through broken English and hand gestures, that her mother was sick and her father was gone. She collected plastic to buy medicine. "Why help me?" David asked. Maya tilted her head. "In Philippines, we are poor in pocket, but not in heart. You look sad. Sad is worse than hungry." The reveal. The next morning, the 48-hour clock ran out. A fleet of black SUVs pulled up to the trash-strewn alleyway. David's security team stepped out, looking panicked. When they saw their boss sitting on a crate next to a little girl in a flour sack dress, they froze. David stood up. His poverty was over, but his perspective had shifted forever. "Sir, your jet is ready," his assistant said, holding out a silk jacket and a fresh phone. David ignored the jacket. He turned to Maya, who was staring at the SUVs with wide, terrified eyes. She thought she was in trouble for talking to the foreigner. "Maya," David said, his voice trembling, "you gave me your last meal when I was a stranger. Now, I want to give you yours." David didn't just give her a handful of cash. That would be too easy. He bought the entire block where Maya and her mother lived. He turned the dilapidated shacks into a modern, sustainable housing complex. He built a medical clinic in the center of Tondo, named the Maya Center, where medicine was free for anyone who collected recyclables. But the real shock came a month later. David's board of directors was waiting for him in New York. They expected him to talk about market opportunities in Southeast Asia. Instead, David walked in with a small, framed photo. It wasn't a picture of a skyscraper or a profit margin. It was a picture of a half-eaten piece of chicken in a plastic bag. "This," David told the richest men in the room, "is the most valuable asset I've ever held." Because the person who had the least was the only one who gave everything. Maya and her mother moved into a beautiful home, and Maya became the first child in her family to go to university. All expenses paid by the beggar she found in the rain. David found a heart of gold in the slums. But wait until you see what happens when a spoiled influencer tries to prank a veteran and realizes he's messing with a retired Special Forces commander. Watch this next.